right side. Favre hands it off to Green, trying to sweep the right side, cuts it back, and he's tackled for a loss. Michael Mccrary, good pursuit by the Ravens that time. Mccrary and Ray Lewis in.
Green, ball carrier. Mccrary on the tackle.
Third and short. And they give it to Hand. It's an end around, and they didn't fool Mccrary. Michael Mccrary right there to drop Eddie Tennessee for a loss. From the shotgun, Dorsey Levens now steps into the backfield. Favre looking, a little flip underneath, and a good tackle. The Ravens' Michael Mccrary wasn't fooled on a little flip to Dorsey Levens. He drops him for a 6-yard loss. Lots.
WLIF 102 FM and WJFK 1300 AM bring you live play-by-play and analysis. Join announcers Scott Garceau and Tom Matte, plus field reporter Bruce Cunningham on the radio home of the Ravens.
You're watching the official news magazine of the Baltimore Ravens. Welcome back to Ravens Report. The Ravens defensive line has really stepped up its performance in the last month and is the core of the Ravens defense for the future. The play of number 99, Michael Mccrary, has been one of the big reasons why. With 8 sacks, Mccrary ranks second on the team and has brought the pass rush that the Ravens lacked last season. Mccrary's road to the NFL, though, has been pretty unique. A child of a mixed marriage, his mother is white and his father is black, Mccrary faced racism as a child and was at the center of a landmark civil rights case in his home state of Virginia that went all the way to the Supreme Court. The lessons those legal battles taught Michael carried over to his football career, as we find out in tonight's Player Profile.
Crown Quality Gasoline presents the weekly Player Profile.
How much do you appreciate having gone through it yourself? I mean, you bring it up right off the bat. You come from a mixed marriage, but to you, it's second nature, and it obviously teaches you.
I grew up in an interesting situation. Went to public school, went to a predominantly white public school, elementary school, and then in the summertime, I would go to Atlanta and spend my summers in Atlanta, Georgia. And it was a predominantly black environment. And of course, I caught it from both sides, the ignorance from both sides. And I learned a lot. You know, the good and the bad, both coaches can be just as bad and cruel to one another. So.
How tough was it? Was it difficult at all for you?
Yeah, it was difficult. Growing up, you know, I was like, man, I can't win, you know. Everywhere I go, people are on my case about something.
Boyd back to throw. Ravens with a blitz. Here comes the pressure. Down he goes. The 8th sack of the game, and I believe that's the 3rd for Michael Mccrary.
You had a huge incident, a much publicized incident.
Yeah,
talk about that.
Mother wanted to enroll me in a nearby local daycare, and she went up there to enroll me, and they didn't accept me because they found out that I was a mixed child, mixed race. And all she wanted to do was she wanted to enroll me there because it was close, it was convenient for her. It's just why? You know, it's unfair. I went to court. I believe it was 6 or 7 of their attorneys against our one civil rights attorney, and it ended up in the Supreme Court, and we ended up winning. It was a big fight. We had death threats and a lot of people against us. And my mom continued to fight through it. And even though people would say that there's no way you can win this case, they have too many people supporting them, too many lawyers, attorneys, all that. She continued to believe in what was right, and she felt that if it's right, and everybody else would realize it's right eventually, and she kept fighting until that came true.
How many years did the trial take? Did the case take?
3 years.
3 years.
Ended in '76. And they tried to bring it up again in '89. And my mom went on the Hill and fought and prevented it from going any further than the Hill.
You were young then at the time. I mean, what kind of impression does, I'm sure you went through some taunting and a lot of public displays of expression, whether good or bad.
I was kind of young, and I really didn't realize what was going on at the time, the importance or significance of it. I got the taunting and stuff anyway, just because I was mixed child.
Well, the nicest thing about coming back to Baltimore is you get to enjoy some of Mom's home cooking, huh?
Oh, definitely. That's
Don't bring your tongue.
That's something that I missed when I was in Seattle, and that's one of the good reasons to be back.
Let's go, D! Come on! JJ, yo, you came on that thing. What? Brad, ET, you can't go 5 yards and boom him. We're just gonna push you back. Come in like 3 yards and boom him. Pull his outside shoulder.
I started playing when I was 6. Didn't know what I was doing. They put me at free safety so I could just sit back there and watch the game. I didn't know I was up there counting the birds in the trees and looking at the stars and kicking dirt until I realized I wanted to be up in there and start hitting some people. I didn't know why I was hitting them, but I just wanted to hit them, so that's how the game started out for me.
How'd you get Boss? He's
Yeah,
a
I
big
mean, I
dog.
always wanted a dog I could wrestle and play with. So when I graduated college, the day I graduated, I went and picked him up with some of my graduation money.
And you take
Deep in
him
the
and
country.
practice some of your moves on him?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I wrestle with him. Sometimes he plays a little bit too rough. But yeah, he's a good dog. Because his bites, he'll grab my hand, and right before he bites down into it, he'll let off. Stop. Give me a kiss. See? So.
From the pocket, feeling some pressure. He's hit and down he goes. They sack him. Back on the 26. Michael Mccrary taking some money off that pizza. Yes, sir.
Another interesting fact, a fact that I just found out about you. You never watched the Super Bowl?
Never seen a Super Bowl. It's just not entertaining to me. I love to play sports, football, but football was never entertaining me watching. It was too slow. Never seen a Super Bowl.
What's made you successful? They always say Mike Mccrary, his motor's always running. Is it the heart, is it the desire more than anything else?
I love the competition. I love just lining up every play, one play at a time, and having somebody line up in front of me who wants to rip my neck off. I mean, you can't beat that feeling, so you got to prevent them and try to do it to them before they do it to you, so it's a good feeling. I try to put myself in a little trance, and I'm just mad at the world. I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to deal with anybody. If someone bumps into me, I look at them like they're crazy. They could be my mother. I just want to go out there and destroy anybody I can.
Let's just say it's a good thing Michael's mom watches the games from the stands. And how about his dog, Boss? That big canine would be the boss of my house, too. Mccrary's becoming a sack specialist in the NFL. Last season as a Seahawk, he tied for the AFC lead with 13.5 takedowns, and all but 2 of those came in just the last 7 games. Had he not been injured at the start of the season, he'd probably have eclipsed that total this season. Mccrary is already planning for a career after football. With the help of his parents, who live in Virginia, Michael owns and operates a human resources company with offices in Phoenix and Silver Spring. Michael says he really enjoys his new home in Owings Mills, and we're glad to have him here. Well, stick around for more Ravens Report. Coming back.
Line is raring to go. Michael Mccrary begins his 4th year with the Ravens. Yesterday, I sat down with the All-Pro defensive end at a fundraiser in Annapolis.
The past 3 years, I've been dealing with knee problems and ailments, and it's like I'm a kid again. You know, I've been given another chance, so I'm really excited about it.
He is healthy, wealthy, and ready to make a run at the playoffs. Back-to-back Pro Bowl seasons, a strong second half of 1999, and a commitment from the Ravens front office as Michael Mccrary feeling better than ever.
It's pretty obvious that they're ready to win, you know, and it looks like we finally made that move to take us all the way to the playoffs, past the playoffs, into the Super Bowl. And it's real obvious. We probably have some of the best off-season acquisitions in the other team.
Pouch back to throw in the pocket. Has some time, now starts scrambling. They got him, and down he goes. Sacked again. Michael Mccrary got him this time.
Mccrary's 35 sacks the last 3 years have helped the Ravens defense mature into one of the league's best. Though it wasn't until the offense found their rhythm that the Ravens found theirs last year. When did Mccrary realize the Ravens had turned the corner?
When the offense started scoring. United Way is bringing all our community resources together, and here's the results.
When Mccrary arrived in Baltimore, he made a commitment to the community. He's proved it wasn't lip service. Yesterday, he was in Annapolis for a fundraiser for his charity, Mac's Miracle Fund.
The mission of the foundation is to build self-esteem, confidence, academic and athletic excellence in young people.
Maryland Special Olympics and the Police Athletic League are benefiting from the generosity of Sandy and Michael Mccrary, and yesterday's gathering included Ravens owner-to-be Steve Bisciotti, whose support of Mccrary won't be forgotten by the all-pro defensive end.
A lot of owners, they never show their face. I remember in Seattle, I never saw the owner of the team. So see Steve and Art Modell, you know, Art is out there every day in the practice field, and when we don't even want to be out there, he's out there. So it's a good feeling knowing that everybody's in this together.
As the Ravens come together now to start their 5th season in Baltimore, Mccrary is eager to test a knee that is pain-free and pay back the fans of Baltimore who've been good to Mike and vice versa.
And that was one of the reasons I came to Baltimore, was the fan support. That was something that was lacking in Seattle, and I knew that Baltimore was notorious for the fans, and I'm just glad that you know, they've been supporting us the way we have. We haven't made it to the playoffs yet. They're at every game, and so we're gonna give them a present this season.
And that, of course, is the playoffs, and that's going to come after Michael. And Channel 2 Sports give you 16 weeks of the Michael Mccrary Show. The announcement made yesterday by Mike, sales director Steve Bach, and Mike's mom, Sandy. We'll tape the show at the ESPN Zone, air the show on Sundays before Ravens games. Now, back to the 200-meter.
The Ravens' Michael Mccrary has a reputation around the NFL as a player that never quits.
It was an attitude that he inherited from his parents, who waged a battle that literally altered the course of civil rights. Steve Davis has tonight's cover story, Historic Victory.
They are the images of the civil rights movement, forever etched in the social conscience of America.
Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
Montgomery, Little Rock, Rosa Parks, MLK. Indelible moments in our nation's history. Michael Mccrary. It is a name that comes to mind when discussing football, not civil rights. That is a mistake, an oversight of significant proportions. He is one of the best players in the National Football League, idolized for the havoc he wreaks in shoulder pads and a helmet. Yet his parents know that their son's greatest accomplishment, his enduring legacy, was achieved when he was barely out of diapers.
You don't start out with something like this by saying, I think I'll set a legal precedent. As I mentioned before, you start out because you're angry, and you start out because you want to try your best to right a wrong.
The wrong that Sandy Mccrary set out to right occurred in 1972, when a privately owned daycare center in Arlington, Virginia, named Bobby's School, refused to admit her 2-year-old son.
I said, by the way, you are integrated. He said, no, we're not. And I said, you mean you don't accept black children? And he said, no, we don't, and we never intend to.
Knowing my mother, I knew that they made a mistake telling my mom that, you know, they definitely told the wrong person.
The wrong person set out to do the right thing. Sandy and Curtis Mccrary, backed by the NAACP, on behalf of their son Michael, filed a discrimination lawsuit.
You want him to stop it, you know? But it's when it hits your child, and then you realize if we don't do anything about it, you know, then it's going to keep going on, and the next person's going to have to hear the same thing.
The case spent over 3 years moving through the federal court system. The daycare center was funded by an organization that represented over 300 all-white schools. The Mccrarys won in district court, then the Court of Appeals, setting up the ultimate showdown in our nation's highest court. The case was argued before the United States Supreme Court on April 26, 1976. Runyon versus Mccrary was a precedent-setting decision. The justices voted 7-2 in favor of the Mccrarys, a landmark ruling in the civil rights movement that prohibited discrimination in any transaction that involved the exchange of money. Among other things, it meant that private schools could no longer discriminate. Little Michael Mccrary, now 5, had already achieved his greatest victory.
It took a lot of guts. It took a family that was willing in Northern Virginia to say, it's wrong that this private school will not accept my son, Michael Mccrary, because of the color of his skin. It took a lot of guts for them to do that, and they stood up and they did the right thing, and they established a very important precedent.
I've had a lot of my teammates come up and say, wow, I didn't know you were part of something like that. It's pretty neat. I appreciate it. So it feels good, to hear that. People really appreciate it, and it's made a difference.
He would ask about it, and I'd put it in context, or try to put it in context, about how it is important, in life to try to stand up, and particularly stand up for people that may not be in the position to do that as well for themselves. That it's almost a responsibility.
That message has been embraced by her son. For his commitment to the community, Michael received the NFL Players Association's highest honor, the annual Humanitarian Award. His $100,000 donation to the Special Olympics was the largest ever made by an athlete or entertainer.
Mike brings intensity to whatever he does, both on and off the field. So when he jumps into a cause like the Special Olympics, he does it with the same veracity and passion and energy that he shows on the field, and that's a positive for the community.
I guess I get it from my parents, just wanting to help other people, especially ones that aren't able to help themselves as much. And when it comes to Special Olympics, it's special for me to help give some money to keep these activities going and available for these athletes.
3 decades have passed since a young couple refused to take their son someplace else. Bobby's school went out of business, replaced by the Fairfax Academy of Early Learning. It is integrated. The Mccrary name now forever etched in the history of this nation.
It's a form of immortality.
Yes.
And I thought about that when Mikey was 3 and 4 years old. It's pretty early to become sort of immortalized in the law books, but it's in a good way, and it's done a lot of good for a lot of families.
The little boy grew up to be a famous football player, a man, not surprisingly, revered for his never-say-never attitude.
Obstacles are just opportunities. Just got to turn them into. Anybody can give up. It's the ones that keep fighting are the ones successful.
Steve Davis, Fox 45, News at 10.
In an ironic twist, the humanitarian award that Mccrary won earlier this year was named in honor of former NFL player Byron "Whizzer" White.
White went on to become a Supreme Court justice who was on the bench when Mccrary's case was heard in 1976. He was one of 2 dissenting justices who ruled against the Mccrarys.
1972 was a year of wide-ranging emotions. Arab terrorists brought death to the Munich Olympic stage. Richard Nixon became the first American president to visit Red China, and 5 third-rate burglars made Watergate a household word. But an incident of equal importance happened just across the Potomac from the infamous Washington Hotel. The owners of Bobby's School, a nursery in Arlington, Virginia, had refused enrollment to a 2-year-old named Michael Mccrary.
I said, you mean you don't accept black children? And he said emphatically, no, we do not, and we never intend to.
The young man who 29 years ago was denied admittance by virtue of his race is today...
At right end, from Wake Forest, number 99, Michael Mccrary.
...a Super Bowl champion. But what the defensive lineman and his fellow Baltimore Ravens achieved last season pales in comparison to the commitment Mccrary's parents made a quarter of a century earlier.
When someone tells you that your child is not acceptable because they're just not the right race, you're confronted with a number of different emotions.
We took it personal. I personally took it personal that they would take that position.
As a mother, you're angry. You're certainly hurt. You want to do something to make them stop.
This is a story of 2, shall we say, ordinary people who made an extraordinary impact on American society. When the Mccrarys filed suit against the owners of the nursery, Russell and Catherine Runyon, they were fighting for something much bigger than their 2-year-old's right to an equal education.
And nothing I could do back then is to be quiet in the courtroom, but it just makes me very proud what my parents represent.
The Civil Rights Act of 1964 had in fact been passed, but our country still had an awful lot to do to correct all those years of injustice and segregation.
But in 1964, the Civil Rights Act protected minorities in the public arena. In '72, the issue for the Mccrarys was equal rights in the private sector.
The Supreme Court really didn't want to have to deal with this issue. They thought they had dealt with all the tough civil rights issues, but they hadn't. They hadn't dealt with the private sector.
There were many people who felt that the school, as you point out, not only was within their right, that what right did we have to make these school owners have to accept black children?
Still, the Mccrarys stood strong. But almost immediately, bigotry and hatred swelled from every direction. Just like the brave civil rights leaders who gave their lives in the name of equality the decade before, Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, and Malcolm X, the Mccrarys' lives were in danger too.
And it was very explicit stuff.
Such as actually threatening to hurt you all?
Yes, and that you should, get the H out of this country and go back to Africa where you belong.
Needless to say, it was very uncomfortable times for us, but we felt very strongly, Sandy felt very strongly, and so did I, that this injustice had to be dealt with.
They had to live in their community, faced with this, knowing that a lot of people were angry.
There were a lot of threats, calls, and threatening calls to our home.
One of which threatened my life and my son's life. And it was about that point I got a gun. I had a .38. For some reason, it made me feel better when I put it under my pillow at night.
Still, the family persevered.
If you truly believe in what you're doing, then you don't worry about all that stuff. And that's the way my parents were. My mom, once she's targeted something and she wants to take it on, nothing's going to stop her.
A lot of people were angry, and a lot of people wanted it to go away, but it wouldn't go away. And quite frankly, it couldn't go away. And so the fact that it didn't speaks volumes about their courage, about their tenacity, and about their resiliency as parents, but more importantly as Americans who believe that the Constitution ought to be afforded to all of its citizens.
The case heated up to the point that it made it to the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court of the United States. And now, standing here 25 years later, we recognize what the Mccrarys were fighting for. One of the most crucial landmark decisions in the history of American civil rights law.
The Supreme Court heard the case in the fall of 1975, but no decision was rendered until the beginning of summer the following year. After a 4.5-year journey, the final gavel was heard. The justices ruled 7-2 in favor of the Mccrarys.
It was announced over the radio. I was eating lunch next door to where I worked. Somebody walked up and said, "Guess what? You won." And that was it. A little anticlimactic, I must say, after all of it, but heartening nonetheless.
The Runyons sold Bobby's school shortly after the Supreme Court's decision. Now called the Fairfax Academy of Early Learning, the site that was once a hotbed of controversy is now a school comfortable in its wide diversity.
I'm up in the way. When you start a case like this, you may have some illusion that you're going to benefit from the decision. It becomes apparent pretty quick that that's not going to happen. And I think it seldom does happen that the plaintiffs in civil rights cases are ever the real beneficiaries of those decisions because too much time goes by. So you realize that this decision will help those who come after you, who never have to hear somebody tell them that their child is not acceptable.
Now their son is easily accepted by his teammates and his community. The 9-year vet is the most recent recipient of the Byron Whizzer White Humanitarian Award, given by the NFL Players Association to the most prominent contributor to charity. Back at the time, Michael Mccrary was too young to understand just how courageous his parents' battle was. But something about their bravery, their steadfast commitment to right over wrong, influenced the course of his life.
It made me the person I am today, to always fight for people who can't fight for themselves or whatever's, if there's a wrong, to try to correct it if I'm capable of doing